I wanted to try to maybe finish up, I don't know, we'll see, on the Christian's conduct in the world. And remember, we started this last Thursday night, and we saw a lot of verses. The Bible has a lot to say about how we are to behave in public and how we are to conduct ourselves among the people of this world. And it's very important because we represent our Heavenly Father. We are the extension of Jesus' ministry that He started here on the earth. So hopefully we're giving the right representation. And so in tough times like we're in right now, where there's a lot of stress and upheaval and unrest, then yes, it's critically important, especially now. But even when things are at peace and going well in the world, we still have to be very mindful of how we represent our Lord. And so let's just quickly go through this and review a little bit and then bring us back up to speed. But remember our stand in the world, our relationship to the world. Because this is one thing that is, it's not spoken enough, it's not thought of enough, it's not really settled in many Christians' hearts. And we know that because they keep trying to join hands with the world. And the lines between the world and the church are very fuzzy. And there's a lot of compromise. And people in the church still want the world's respect and approval. And we kind of want to win them over, not necessarily to the gospel of Christ, but we want to win them over so that they think well of us, the church. And those are all the wrong motives. And so here the Apostle John in 1 John 2:15 said, "Do not love the world or the things in the world." We are not attached. We do not depend upon their opinion, their respect, whether they agree or disagree. We don't love the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life because that's all that's in the world. They are living to serve themselves, lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. We are living to serve our Heavenly Father. And so those two motives are diametrically opposed to each other. That puts us at odds with each other. In fact, that puts us at war with each other. They don't understand us. They think we are foolish. And so there's really no agreement or fellowship there in methodology or in motive. He says in James chapter 4, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself what? The enemy of God. You can't get any clearer than that. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16, what agreement has the temple of God with idols? And so it's foolish for us as the church to try and continue to woo the world or be friends with the world or join hands with the world or join in social projects with the world. There's no agreement. We just saw our motives and our methodology are completely opposed, opposite of one another. So what agreement can there be? How can two walk together unless they be agreed? How can we join hands with them in a joint venture? God says, I want to make my dwelling among them and I want to walk among them. And I can't do that if you're going to be a partaker of darkness and idolatry. If you're going to join hands with that, then my presence won't be with you. It's that simple. Therefore, go out from their midst and be separate from them. Not a monastic physical separation, but we know it's a separation of heart, just like we were saying. Separation of motive, separation of methodology, separation of the glory. We give all the glory to God. Like the Cuomo brothers, they give all the glory to New York and themselves and man. We can't join hands with that. There's no camaraderie there. There's no fellowship there. Come out from their midst. Be separate from them. Even though we live among them and work with them every day, come out from their midst and be separate from them in heart, in spirit, in motive, in thought, in methodology. Touch no unclean thing, and then I will welcome you. And so we really have to keep that in mind. Remember, in this time that we're in, we saw that the Chick-fil-A CEO suggests that white people shine the shoes of black people to express shame over racism. And so you see things like this where the church, is trying to join the world and join hands with the world. You probably saw this mega church pastor marches with Black Lives Matters protesters in Houston. There is nothing, I don't know of anything in society at this moment more dangerous than Black Lives Matter. They are not about black lives. They have a very dangerous, destructive agenda. And the Black Lives Matter, Black lives is only their front. It's their cover. But there is a whole cesspool underneath of that. How can we join hands and be a part of that? Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, we know the battle, the spiritual warfare that rages all around us every day. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and the authorities and the cosmic powers of this present darkness. God forbid that we partake of that. It doesn't matter how good the cause might seem. And I think that's the real point of deception for most people. Well, this is such a worthy cause. Well, what took place and what happened here was wrong. Yes, it was wrong. Yes, in a lot of cases it is abuse, it is prejudice, it's racism, it's murder. Yes. Well, if this is just for such a good cause, then why can't we jump in and be a part? Because God's solution is not their solution, and the world's solution is not God's solution. And just because we can agree that something is evil doesn't mean that we can partake of their spirit, their motive, their methodology. Come out from among them and be separate. Realize that they are of a different kingdom, the kingdom of darkness that is at war with the kingdom that we live in, the kingdom of light. What fellowship can there be between light and darkness? We saw in Acts chapter 5, verse 27, that there will be times as Christians when we have to practice civil disobedience, obeying God rather than man. And remember this time when they were brought in. Acts chapter 5, verse 27, they were brought in before the Sanhedrin. When they had brought them, they set them before the council, and the high priest questioned them, saying, "We strictly charged you not to teach in this name." Remember what's happening here with the Sanhedrin. At this time, the Sanhedrin could police and enforce laws at the local level. They couldn't administer capital punishment. They had to get Rome's permission for that. But they could patrol and police their region. And so this is not just Acts chapter 5, verse 28. This is not just the Sanhedrin, persecuting them as Jews to Christians, even though that was the motive. But the Sanhedrin actually had jurisdiction to be able to tell them and make this and enforce this requirement. We strictly charged you not to teach in this name, yet here you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and you intend to bring this man's blood upon us. And Peter and the apostles answered, "We must obey God rather than men." And the time for us when we have to say that is probably coming a lot quicker than we think. Because the spiral downhill that our government is making right now is quite radical and bewildering. And so we saw all of that, and we see, on the spiritual level, and it's important for us to keep these principles in mind because we said last week, we're walking a really tightrope here. We're walking a precipice. We're walking a fine line of balance here where we have to remember what kingdom we're of and what kingdom we are of not. But then we also see here the apostles' commandment to us of how to behave in the world. Part of it is realizing that we are the last hope in this world. Think about that for a moment. I don't think at times we really understand that as the church, but we're standing in between God's mercy and God's judgment upon these people. We are their last hope, literally. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 6, and you know what is restraining him, referring to the Antichrist. What is restraining the Antichrist from rising to power right now? We see all the signs of it. All of the nations, and maybe that's an overgeneralization, but all of the nations are pushing for a global government, a global economy, ushering in, the reign of a one world government by Antichrist. Can you believe all of the technology now where, in the name of medical science and tracking COVID-19, they are tracking people's cell phones and they know exactly where you've been at what time of the day, and it's amazing. This is all being set up for the one world government. But there's one thing holding him back, or else he would be revealed right now. You know what that one thing is? It's the church. Because the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Antichrist is ready to ascend to that throne. The one world government, it could happen so quickly. Only he who now restrains it will do so until he is out of the way. And until the church is taken out of the way, Antichrist cannot come to full power. That ought to give you a sense of, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be afraid of the coming darkness. I don't have to be afraid of the Antichrist. If we as the church are powerful enough to hold back the forces of evil in that way, then we've got some power. God is in us. He says here in Jude chapter 1, verse 22, have mercy on those who doubt. Save others by snatching them out of the fire. Snatching them where? They're already in the flames. They already feel the heat of God's judgment. And there they would go, except for a Christian to grab them and pull them out of the fire. We are the last hope for this world. And I shouldn't say it that way. We are the last hope for the souls in this world. And so when we're taken away, the Antichrist will come to full power. The judgment of God will come to this earth. But we will be saved in heaven with the Lord. But that's where we stand in this world. And so how does God want us to act when we're out in public? Well, I put there in your notes, Christians are to be submissive, obedient, honorable, and productive citizens. And you see this time and time again. Matthew chapter 17, verse 24, when they came to Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma tax went up to Peter and said, does your teacher not pay the tax? They were trying to catch Jesus. And do you know the world is studying your life? And they want to find fault in you? And they want to find where your religion has holes in it? Does it have any? How is your testimony before the world? Because they're watching you just like they watched Jesus. And he said yes, and when he came into the house, Jesus spoke to him. What do you think, Simon? From whom do kings of the earth take toll or tax? From their sons or from others? He said, from others, and Jesus said to him, then the sons are free. Jesus was enforcing here, because of what's going to happen on the cross, in my death and in my resurrection, and then with the baptism of the Holy Spirit, you all are not of this world. The world will be crucified to you. You will be crucified to the world. You're not under this world's power. You are, in fact, free from the sin, free from the powers of darkness, free from the world system, but you still got to pay your taxes. However, not to give offense to them, go to the sea and cast a hook and take the first fish. When you open its mouth, take the shekel, take that and give it to them for me and for yourself. So we see here, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. We are to be obedient to the government that we find ourselves under. That's the sovereignty of God. That's the law of God. Titus chapter 3, verse 1. Remind them to be submissive to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one. I get so tired of all the complaining and all the accusations and all of the finger pointing and blame shifting, and we're not supposed to be like that. Avoid quarreling. Everybody wants to fight and argue about everything. Well, why do I have to do that? Be gentle. Don't be pushy. Don't demand your own way. Be gentle towards people. Be someone that's easy to be approached. Show perfect courtesy towards all people. For we ourselves were once foolish, disobedient, led astray, slaves to various passions and pleasures, passing our days in malice and envy, hated by others and hating one another. Man, you remember that life? Aren't you glad you're free from it? There is nothing like the peace of God. Being at rest in His love and in His care and being at peace with others as much as you can. Be at peace. And then 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 12, keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, not if they speak against you, but when they speak against you, because they will make up lies. When they come and make up those lies, have your conduct be such that nothing they say can overwhelm or contradict the evidence of your life, your behavior. That when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good works and glorify God on the day of visitation. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme. And remember, who was the emperor here? Nero. It's believed one of the most cruelest, bloodthirsty emperors, persecuted the Christians without mercy. And Peter here, so convinced of the sovereignty of God. They really believed that they were where they were in life because that's where God placed them. That's where they belonged. And they needed to submit, not to the world, but submit to God's placement and calling on their life. To governors as sent by Him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. The emperor and the governors are sent by God, so obey them. Because no one can rise or fall without the hand of God. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the emperor. Honor everyone. Even when driving down Route 28, honor everyone. Even when you're in the stores, honor everyone. Show them the respect. Servants, be subject to your masters with all respect, not only to the good and the gentle, but also to the unjust. We talked Sunday about slaves and slavery. And though again, this is something where we would agree with most in the world about the evils of slavery. But did you see Sunday, God has a completely different plan of how to resolve the problems of slavery. And God's method of resolving slavery is foolishness to the world. Their way is uprising and violence and And God had something different in mind. He had a different plan, as we saw through Peter and Paul's admonitions. For this is a gracious thing when mindful of God, one endures sorrows while suffering unjustly. And so this is the way we are to respond in the world. Why? Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. If this governor, if this emperor, if this mayor, if this policeman has been granted this position of authority, then he's there by the placement of God. And Paul makes it very clear here in Romans 13, to resist is to resist what God has appointed. And so, as we live in this world and we are respectful and submissive and obedient in this world, it's as unto God. It's not unto man. It's unto God, recognizing that this man is no different than I am. There's nothing superior about him. He's no better than me, and I'm no better than him. But yet God has put him in this position, and so therefore I need to honor God's decision and God's placement. And in that way I serve as unto the Lord. Not unto men, but I serve as unto the Lord. Now the man gets the benefit because the man gets my submission. He gets my respect. But it's not really for him, it's for the Lord. But the man receives the benefit. And he says, if you resist, then you will incur judgment. I'm going to skip over this. So that's how Christians are to be out in public, out as we have intercourse and interaction with the world. We are submissive, we are obedient, we are honorable, we are productive citizens. Yes, we even pay taxes, unless there comes a demand or a law that would require us to directly disobey a commandment of God. And then we do what? Then we obey God rather than man. But otherwise, like we were saying Sunday, we are a peaceful people. We are a dignified people. We are an obedient people. We are a respectful people. And then secondly, Christians are to be forgiving. We are to be compassionate, merciful, ready to help, and zealous for justice. This passage in Proverbs chapter 31 is very clear what it is saying. And I've heard many Christian leaders try to use this verse as a foundation for them joining hands with the world, trying to bring about legislation or movements or public works for social equality, social justice. And I want you to see the heart of God in it, and yet at the same time, we can't join hands together with the world in their endeavors. Look at Proverbs 3, verse 8. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. So if you are a Christian living in this world, sojourning through this world, you're going to see probably just about every day evil. Things that are not right, things that are unjust. It's been a little surprising for me on my job. You know, when you think of injustice or abuse, you think of the man, the low man on the totem pole. You know, the common working man, he's being abused and oppressed, and that's true. That does happen. But I have found myself in many situations defending the management because the workers, the everyday common worker at the grassroots, man, they are lying and rebelling and insubordinate, and justice doesn't just flow downhill. And wherever we see injustice, wherever we see abuse, it should hurt us. Violence should turn your stomach sick. The hatred, the murder. There's times that I can watch some of the things they show on the news now, and there's times when I can't watch it. It makes you sick to see how cruel people can be to other people. Do you see that video they were showing of that group of people, that mob, attacked those policemen in New York on the Brooklyn Bridge? Yeah, and they took that steel pole and beat the policeman over the head. It was sickening to watch that. And when that stuff happens, there should be a righteous anger that rises up in you. I've got to do something that's wrong. And that's what he's saying here in Proverbs. But we're going to do it with a completely different motive, a completely different methodology than the world. And we can't join hands with them just because we agree that something was wrong. Luke chapter 10, verse 30, Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Religion can make your heart hard. Religion can make your heart so hard that you can't even be moved with sympathy or compassion for someone. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to that place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. Very possibly, he had ended up in a ditch once or twice before, beaten up and bleeding. So he went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper and said, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. And so then he asks the crowd there, Jesus did, which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And he said, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, what? You go and do likewise. And so we're to be in this world, but we're not supposed to be aloof. And when people are truly in need, our heart can't help but go out to them in sympathy and in compassion. And there's going to be times when you're moved to do something and to help them directly. And that's what Jesus said Christians are. Christians are loving, they're caring. Remember this story in John chapter 8, verse 3. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, placing her in the midst. And they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the very act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. How many of you know that they're only half right? Yeah. You're supposed to stone the man and the woman. A woman cannot commit adultery by herself. It takes 2 to tango, right? And so this was completely unjust. And Jesus, in his heart, said, it's not going to go down this way. Maybe she does need judgment. But do you see, Jesus and these Pharisees agreed on one thing. This was sin. Because she told the woman, go and what? Sin no more. So they both agreed this was wrong. They both agreed this was sin. They both agreed this needed to be dealt with. But just because they agreed on those things, was Jesus willing to join their side and join their fight and march in their movement? He wasn't, was he? They said this to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Can you imagine hating Jesus so much that you're willing to kill this woman? Just to prove what? So Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And Jesus said this, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. They said it was sin. The law said it was sin. Jesus said it was sin. Everyone said something has to be done. But Jesus would not partake of their spirit. Because what fellowship can there be between light and darkness? And they were moving in darkness, using the law in deception, using the law in hypocrisy, using the law in darkness. Jesus stood up and he said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you." So this was also, it was an action against injustice. And yet at the same time, he was reaching out to this woman saying, "Hey, forgiveness is available to you. Mercy is available to you. Salvation is available to you. Now go and sin no more." And we know Jesus was not saying, now you can never ever again commit even one little infraction for the rest of your life. That's not what Jesus was saying, was it? What he was telling her, though, was you've got to turn from your sin. There's got to be obedience. There's got to be repentance. There's got to be a change. And so he admonished her in that way. But we see here Jesus coming out very forcefully against injustice. Remember John chapter 4, verse 5? So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about noontime, the 6th hour. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. And I think this is one of the examples that many use in their fight for social equality and social justice. And they're actually not wrong to use this as an example because, number one, Jesus did two very politically incorrect things here. Number one, he, a man, a teacher, was speaking to a woman. That was a no-no. You didn't do that in those days. Secondly, she was a Samaritan dog. Jews didn't speak to Samaritans. And so he was crossing racial boundaries. He was crossing national boundaries. There was a whole lot of boundaries that he was crossing that he wasn't supposed to cross. Because he didn't see a woman, he didn't see a Samaritan, he saw a lost soul that desperately needed a drink from this living water. That's the way we are supposed to be. You know, it used to be a compliment to say that you were colorblind, racially colorblind. I don't see color, I don't see white or black or brown or... And then you probably saw it in the news, Chip and Joanne Gaines, they were interviewing this black man, and I don't know who it was. I think it was someone famous. And because they wanted to hear, his perspective on everything going on. And he explained to them, well, being colorblind is an insult to the black people because you're supposed to respect us for being black. And it seems like the whole thing had changed. And it was much like, is it Mike Huckabee? Mike Huckabee was saying the other night on the video, people in Black Lives Matter don't like to hear all lives matter. And there's a real elevation of their group above other groups. And so here Jesus, he's crossing a lot of social barriers. And that's how we are to be. Lastly, here in Romans chapter 12, verse 16, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. You're no better than anybody else. Associate with the lowly. Apart from the grace of God, you'd be lowly. You'd be without. You'd be destitute. Never be wise in your own sight. Never think you know it all or you're smarter than them. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. When the riots and the looting started, and now businesses are being burned down, certain areas and communities being destroyed, is that not repaying evil for evil? Did they stop and give thought? What would be honorable in this situation to do? If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. And that was the admonition that Paul and Peter gave to the slaves. Don't take this situation into your own hands. Be submissive to your masters. If there is abuse, if there is injustice, leave it in the hands of God. Let the wrath of God take care of it. And you know what? If you truly surrender it to the hand and the will of God, God will avenge you. He will deliver you. He will defend you. But you don't take it into your own hands. Leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. And let me just say, like Paul, if you have a way to escape, get out of town, man. Get out of that situation. But if not, don't take it into your own hands to resolve. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Even if vengeance and hatred is being expressed to you, don't let that give birth to hatred in your heart. Give it to God. Father, we thank you that you give such clear instructions on how we are to live and behave and conduct ourselves in public, in the world system. And Father, you didn't say, behave this way under these set of circumstances. This is the rule and the guide of how we are to behave, no matter what the circumstances. And so, Father, as we continue down this path, and it seems like chaos and lawlessness is surrounding us on every side, keep us on the straight and narrow. Let us be mindful of these scriptures. Let us always be aware that we are in this world, but we're not of it. That the world is an enemy to God. That there very well may come a time when we have to say we will obey God rather than man. But until that line is clearly drawn, we are to be respectful, obedient, productive citizens. Because we believe you put the powers in place. Father, we love you and we thank you. And as we go, you ask that you would go with us. We ask that you would keep us from the evil one. We ask that you would keep us safe from harm. Keep us safe from the plague. And we thank you and we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.